I want to show my punches really quick because I had people asking about the notches in my Western Clovis video. I did demonstrated the punch work, but I didn't show in enough detail the ends of these things where you can see them. Okay, see this notch in the punch? It wears little shoulders, and I just kind of find a spot that works good at the time if I'm using the corner. And they wear little bevels on them, and if they get too deep, then I just grind them down a little bit. But they'll be different sizes. Sometimes if there gets to be a divot in there, you have to smooth it out with a flake or file it. But normally they dress themselves pretty well. As they start wearing up the horn, they don't seem to work as well, and I just start at the bottom again. And this Asian warthog tusk is a similar deal. I've got the punch dressed in here, and then I've just got a notch in that spot. And this stuff is hard, unless you really are abusing, hitting platforms that you shouldn't be. These notches last a long time. My fluting tine that I used in the Hammerstone Clovis video in that second flute, it has just a very fine notch in the end right there. And what happens is, if you've got, actually I've got some points right here I was going to show, so I'll get my point back out and show you. If you're going to flute and the notch is too deep, imagine that as it comes through it's going to overstrike, and you can fold your point or just damage, really badly damage the back of the point. So you want it as shallow as possible. And if the flint is really hard or the platform is very stout, sometimes you'll flake, you'll damage the end of the antler. But it just takes, I just score it with a flake and fix it and then put it back on there. And this little warthog ivory, or this is just a regular boar. It's not an Asian warthog. It's got a little bit of a broader notch in it just because I've used it longer. See, it's wearing up. And this is just a dandy little punch. And I'll show some points. I'm going to do some other videos on punching. Here's an example of a Osceola or a Chesterfield knife that I made with a hammerstone, and then used indirect percussion to do all of the finish work on it. And the benefit of that is that you can make really fine edges that have no pressure retouch. I believe that a lot of these points that have work that appears to be pressure flaking, but it looks powerful and it's blended, really isn't pressure flaking at all. What it is controlled punch work. And if you hold these things in something fast, and you can use these small punches on them, and I'll demonstrate that shortly in another video, you can just work in a series and go all the way up and control terminations and edges in a way that's very difficult to do with just holding it in your hand. So I'll show how that's done. So that's that. I'll show points perfect, and well, these 2 points are good examples of early archaic knives that are utilitarian and have edges and bodies on them that are just phenomenal. The order, the balance, the flat spot right above the hafting, the build of the body, the fineness of the edge, and how much this could be used and resharpened again and again and again and still keep the same relative proportions for a lot of the use of the point, only getting shorter, maybe. The advance, if this stems were on here, you'd be able to see how well controlled these notches are. And these aren't exclusive examples. There's points like this all over the archaeological record that just hands down blow modern stuff away, as far as, if you were to measure the stuff and look at the consistency of how it's made. There's not, my work doesn't represent such strict, constraints of those kind of dimensions and quality of workmanship, and I've been trying hard at this stuff. So don't think by any means that people today have the art market cornered or the technical aspect cornered, because it's not. That's one of the biggest misconceptions about the art of modern knapping. This stuff is above. Here's a nice little dovetail. Doesn't have very deep notches, but it's very well controlled. A lot of these had a lot of really heavy pressure on them. Fine edge work. This one's got a big impact fracture on the tip. Sometimes I wonder, why they're using knives and then chucking them. This was obviously thrown, a spear or something to do that. Or a dart. I'll show this just because it's a nice piece of that Hickson silicified sandstone. This is all indirect percussion on this Clovis. The second flute didn't go as far, but it's got a nice hefting base, and look at how translucent this is. Isn't that pretty? Okay. For my large antler direct percussion, I do a lot of just average points scale work. I use the direct percussion saw, so that I use a moose billet to make this dovetail. And it's not a very good replica, but it's okay. Show off this tip. This is another old point. I'm not at home. If I were at home, I'd show you guys a bunch of really cool stuff, but I've just have a few pieces here. This is an example of some really controlled, fairly heavy pressure flaking. Maybe some blended hammerstone work on this, some really fine hammerstone work. But it's just, obviously the back is broken off, but the lenticular cross-section and the quality of the edges of this it's not untypical. It's got just really superb edges on it and some really great work. This would be a tough piece to do. There's a Colby variety Clovis punched. It doesn't have a lot of good overshot flaking on it. It's raw kaolin. A couple of little North blades, Indiana hornstone and Burlington heat treated. I've got I use the same technique on these, not holding it against a leather anvil and not trapping any of these and trying to chip it as clean as possible. As the preform becomes flatter, it becomes more difficult, as flakes aren't traveling ridges, they're just traveling into flat surfaces, and they're wanting to spread out. So if you put pressure on there, if like this flake right here, if I would have had pressure right there, I could have broke the flake off right there. So I try to back off on my angle as much as possible and just tune up the support so they come off clean. So I'll show you how to do that. There's a punch fluted Clovis that looks authentic because it's got a broken tip. I dropped it after I made it. It was sort of disappointing. But that's all indirect percussion, and there's no pressure work on this. Just maybe, did I do a little shaping? No, I don't think I did any. I just did it all with a punch. So you can kind of see, if we were to assume that this was an old point and we'd look at it, you'd say, well, it's got edge, they refined the edges with pressure. And no, I didn't at all. I just used the little corner of a small punch and just blended it with a punch flake. Or maybe took the punch and just did a little scrunch, but when you look at multiple fluting on a lot of these things and you see the flakes running right into other surfaces and the blade flaking matches up, even when it's fine, you can't rule out that it's just controlled punch work, because it's really quick and easy to do. So we'll do maybe another video with some of that. Okay, that's it. I showed you the punches and some points and maybe future video projects, and now my camera's blinking, so I'm going to turn it off.